Hi everyone, today we will continue to explain the latest question bank content for our CKA 2026. In the last class, we talked about the automatic configuration of HPA. Today, let's move on to the second question. So what is the second question about? It's about our ingress, the ingress resource. First of all, the main function of this, as I believe everyone basically understands, is load balancing. It's essentially the same principle as what we use internally, but the difference is usually between internal and external. So what's the main difference with ingress? Actually, in fact, ingress also uses services. From the requirements provided in our second question, we can actually see this point. First of all, the requirement of this question is to have us use an existing service within a namespace to create a new ingress. In other words, if you want to use ingress, then the load balancing of the service is actually considered part of ingress. You can think of it this way because primarily within the cluster, our main focus is on scaling. Then for us to access it from outside the cluster, well, generally, how do we do that? Usually we achieve this by exposing it externally, either through mapping or routing. You can understand it either way. This is actually the main point of our second question, creating a resource. In this case, the question has already provided us with an existing one, so we don't need to create it ourselves. Next, we need to create it in the corresponding namespace using a fixed port. Here, parameters like the namespace name, our service name, and the port number may all change, so please pay close attention to these details. Now let's take a closer look at the solution for our second question. First of all, our ingress. How do we create this resource? Actually, what's the main point? The main thing is to specify our service information, mainly to specify the service details. Then we need to write the URL path required by the question, as well as the port number and our domain name. All of these are provided in the assignment. So now let's take a closer look at this particular question. As for the solution, the first step is still to remotely access our corresponding host node. The second step is to start creating the ingress. Now in this case, according to the question, actually, what do we already have? To be precise, there is already one in the environment. There is already an existing ingress class name, so what do we need to do here? The first step is to check which ingress classes already exist in our cluster. Then, when we create the ingress, we can just use it directly. Yes, just use it directly. So here, let's start by checking the existing ingress information in the cluster. Now let's switch to the cluster first. The first step is to check something. Let's check one of the ingresses in our cluster, okay? Ingress information. Here, this information is... You can just directly check the ingress class. You don't need to type so much here. Even though the word looks long, if you just type in rest, it will auto-complete for you, which is quite convenient. Now, let's take a look. This is what JD.com already has. There's one called an ingress index with the name .io. Is that the name of a class? So here, first we have a name, right? It's right at the front, and it's called and then here, first, once we have this, the next step is that we can go to our specific invest IML file and create it there. Actually, the question doesn't require us to name the file anything specific, so you can name it whatever you like. As long as you create the file and successfully create the ingress, this question is done. So the file name isn't important. When it comes to the English name, you are free to define it yourself however you prefer. The only thing you really need to pay close attention to is the specific name that comes up in the query results here. Usually in the past, this name was basically fixed and static. But recently, with the release of the new version, which is also this year's new version, there's been a small change here. The name might change. The name here could change. So just write whatever name you find in your query. Later, when we write it in the file, just use that name. Don't insist on always using the word N directly, or you might run into problems. So to avoid issues, the first step here is to create a new ingress.yml file. Alright. So first of all, for this first step, when we add content here, it's for this document. The content for this second question is relatively long. It will be a bit longer. If you need to look something up, you can refer to the official documentation. That's totally fine. In fact, during the exam, you can't consult other materials, but you are allowed to look at the documentation. So if you're not very clear about this question, you can just go directly to the official documentation and check it. Just copy it. Of course, the official documentation doesn't provide a complete answer. It's more like a template. So after you copy the template from the official documentation, what can you do? You can make some modifications yourself, just make some adjustments on your own. So First, what do we do here? Application, and then add our kid here. This is actually about our metadata. To be precise, this is the basic information for ingress. From here, the content that might change can start. First, the name field. This is a name specified in the question. It's the name given in the problem statement. As for namespace, that's our namespace, and it's also specified in the question. Then moving further down, we have this, the path for the URL. Here, everyone must pay attention to one thing. Be sure to watch out for indentation issues. You must pay attention to indentation. If your indentation is incorrect, well, actually, in this case, incorrect indentation isn't particularly fatal, because if the indentation is wrong, what will happen during execution? There will be a direct error, meaning you won't be able to proceed with this step. At the very least, what does it mean? At least you can spot the error. Yeah, at least you can find the error. This is actually quite useful. So here, what we're actually doing is redirecting the request path to ours. It's equivalent to the root directory of the site. After finishing this part, next comes our specific detailed information. In the details section, the very first step is to write down the name we retrieved above. Yeah, write down the name you just queried above. Here, everyone must pay attention to the indentation in this section. The common name here is the ingress class we just mentioned. The name here must be based on what you queried. If you got a different word from your query, you also need to write that specific word. Whatever you do, don't just write it directly without checking. Angus, make sure you look at it carefully, okay? And here, the specific rules are the rules related to ingress. First of all, the first thing we need to write, as required by the question, is the domain name. After writing down the domain name, what's the next step? Next, we specify the exact path. This path is actually provided in the question as well, right? It also specifies which path. It's this one. /the echo path. Right, the path, and then next is the specific type.
Let's pause for a short announcement. Friends, if you're currently preparing for this ITification exam, or if you've been studying for a while but don't feel your preparation is very efficient, this is something you shouldn't miss. Our team has been focused on its certification dumps for 16 years, doing one thing consistently: organizing the most up-to-date, most exam-accurate, and easiest to use dumps to help candidates pass their exams more efficiently. Our dumps closely follow official exam updates. They are stable, highly accurate, and well aligned with real exam questions, allowing you to prepare with more confidence while spending less time. If you'd like to get the dumps for this exam and pass the certification faster, you can contact us directly via WhatsApp or YouTube private messages. We're happy to explain the latest update dates, dump stability, exam policies in different countries, as well as any current purchase discounts. Everything is clear and transparent before you decide. We also place great importance on payment security and privacy protection. The entire purchasing process is simple and secure, with no unnecessary data collection. Your personal information and privacy are fully protected. In addition, we provide 24/7 consultation and after-sales support. Whether you're just getting started or running into issues right before the exam, our support team will patiently and professionally help you analyze and solve problems. You're never preparing alone. Beyond this specific exam, our dumps cover almost all major IT certification tracks. If you plan to pursue other IT certifications in the future, feel free to reach out anytime. We'll give recommendations based on your goals.
For the type here, we use previous. As for the specific service here, that is the SWICE here, it's our The existing SWI is provided in the assignment. Here, you must pay close attention to the name and make sure you write it correctly. If you get it wrong, when you try to create it later, it won't be able to find the content you want. Here, for the port number, we use the specified port. Of course, in the assignment, it should be port 8080. After you've finished writing the content, check the indentation. Just take a quick look to see if it's consistently indented with 2 spaces. If everything looks fine, you can save and exit, then verify whether it's working properly. Actually, the content for this question is quite long, so after you finish writing, make sure to carefully check it. When I say carefully check, I don't mean checking the formatting, but rather what should you be checking carefully. Carefully check this. Check whether the specific parameters are correct. If the parameters are incorrect, what might happen? Some issues may arise later on. Problems may occur. Let's run it here first. If any errors pop up, what does that mean? It means that there are some specific issues in the file. There's a problem with the content. For example, let's take a look at this here. So what is this error saying? It's saying that yes, it should be this line. Here we'll be looking at n64.r ingress .kubernetes.io. Gone rewrite. This is the restart section, a restart related content. If we want to see if the above temperature reading can be reported as an error, we can look at the string that was just reported as an error. The content he reported is actually from our original data. The content in that data is the corresponding content, and this is it. We're missing a CKA here, missing a CKA. Everyone, please pay attention to this. Here, we're redirecting to our root directory, redirecting to the root. So actually, there should be a colon in the middle here that needs to be added. Then let's execute it again. And here it also mentions this. Ingress. Let's take a look at the details of ingress here. Ingress class name. There's an issue with uppercase and lowercase letters here. There's a problem with capitalization. For ingress here, the I should be uppercase I. Then specifically for the rules here, HTTP path backend. Back. Right? If you just simply copy and paste everything here, it is actually very easy to run into some unexpected errors. So here, if you really want to finish this task much faster, it is definitely best to copy the exact content directly from the official documentation. That way, relatively speaking, you will find it is much more reliable and efficient for your workflow. At least in terms of formatting, we won't have any major issues. The main problems usually focus on what? They usually focus on with the parameter names. Then over here, you can see that according to the instructions in the question and the feedback prompts I provided, after we finish modifying the content, it is created successfully. So how do we verify it? Actually, we just need to directly access the link provided in the question. The website example.org. Just echo, right? After making the changes, if it displays hello world, then there's no problem. That's our reference question. There are indeed quite a few things to pay attention to. Let's take another overall look at the content of this file. Basically, you just write it like this. Actually, if you open the official documentation and search for this content directly, you can find it. This part of the documentation is available like this. And of course, what is usually missing in the documentation? Usually this part doesn't have this. There's no host line here. Everything else is there as normal. After you open and copy the documentation, you can copy this whole section. Then just add the host line yourself. The official documentation only provides those two types without the host line. Then just add this part yourself later and write in the domain name. For the other content, just modify it according to the specific requirements in the question. For example, the first few lines generally don't matter, but the name here needs to be changed. In the first few lines, it's the name here. You need to create your own name, right? And you need to specify the namespace. Then below, it's about our domain name and the specific path. Including the name of Swiss, the Swiss port number, these all need to be changed. All of these need to be modified. Actually, if you just copy it, organizing the format won't be much of a problem. This is the content of our ingress. So if you're pressed for time, actually copying is still a better option. Relatively speaking, it saves time and it's less likely to have formatting issues, right? Like just now, if I were to type everything manually, there could be formatting problems, right? If you accidentally type a wrong letter or miss a space or something, it could all lead to errors. So for the final result of our ingress in the second question, there's actually no problem here. You just need to set each parameter according to the requirements of the question. You see here, the parameters involved in the question are just 1 or 2, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there are a total of 7 parameters. So you know that there are 7 parameters in this file that need to be modified, and you need to pay attention to that. You must make sure each one matches up correctly. Of course, one good thing about this question is that if you get a parameter wrong, if you make a mistake, especially if you make an error in the splice operation here, you actually won't be able to get a result actually for these, right? If you make a mistake here, you won't get any result at all. The only thing is, only if you get the name wrong will it not affect the others. But if you make any other mistake, you actually won't be able to get the final result. So think carefully about this question. If you get some of the parameters wrong, you actually won't see this hello world. Okay, so that's something to pay attention to for this question. All right, we'll stop here for today. This is our second question, and we'll bring you more in the future. If you're interested, feel free to discuss in the comments section. If you want access to the question bank, you can also mention it in the comments. Just go to the comments section. You can also send me a direct message. Either way is fine. That's all for today's content. In the next lesson, we'll continue with new explanations from our question bank. All right, that's it for today. Bye, everyone.